Talk of the Trollway spotlights Mount Horeb, Wisconsin's dynamic world of art, entertainment, hobbies, and travel. Funding for Talk of the Trollway is provided by Miller & Sons Supermarket.
From Flint, Michigan to Platteville, Wisconsin, Greg Dennis has led nearly a dozen choirs from the practice room to the main stage. He's been with the Mount Horeb Chorale since their first concert for the village's Quasquicentennial, and the local singers recently presented their 28th annual show in April 2014. Greg was front and center, keeping time and marking cues. Sit up straight, take a deep breath, and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because on this episode of Talk of the Trollway, Greg discusses the culture of the chorale and his belief that anyone can sing. I'm your host, Gary Schatz.
We got together because of the Quasquicentennial, 125th anniversary of Mount Horeb. And it was decided there would be all kinds of celebration, all kinds of activity. And one of those activities, of course, encouraged by Forey Johnson, among others. He was pretty prominent in the history of this town. But we would have a group that would get together and sing, and it would be just an accumulation or maybe a gathering of the many church choirs that were in town. And so that's what we did for a church service, literally, and then we learned a few additional songs besides the 2 or 3 songs that we had for the service there that was held in the high school gym. And people enjoyed doing it so much that they wondered if we might try it again, and that was literally the beginning of that. I shared the directorship with other directors in that sesquicentennial year, or that Quasquicentennial year. Quasqui and sesqui, people get that mixed up. People had never heard of Quasqui before.
The fact that you can pronounce it, I think, is pretty amazing.
Can't spell it, though. But there were other directors who shared that directorship, but I was the high school choral director, so it kind of fell on me to continue it.
Who participates in these concerts? What sort of people knock on your door and say, yeah, I want to take part in this?
Frequently, there are people who've had some singing experience in high school someplace. As you probably are very well aware right now, Mount Horeb has grown a lot, and there are lots of people who are new that have come from other places. But almost always, at some point, they were in somebody's choir, somebody's school choir.
Sisters, ain't you happy? Oh, sisters, ain't you happy? Sisters, ain't you happy? Followers of the Lamb.
We do get people who have never sung in their lives, but I always want choirs to be in a situation where people at least can give it a try. They'll know in a hurry if they don't like it, or if they can't, or if they feel embarrassed, what have you.
Well, it seems if they've walked in the room, that's half the battle right there. They've showed up.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do some hand clapping and echoing, and that hand clapping and echoing eventually works into my making sounds where I want people to echo. And as people are doing that in a group, they feel comfortable. It's one of the nice things about singing in a choir. If you like to sing but you're not confident in your voice, singing in a choir can be one of the safest places to make music.
It almost seems like your voice could get lost in that group. You're not being singled out. You're part of a collective.
Well, and ideally, that's what you want a choir to do anyway, is to all be sounding the very same. And with that in mind, we encourage opening the mouth. We encourage proper posture, and here I am doing this, and proper breathing. And I still go out all the time in public schools and teach this process, and
Can you give us a quick instruction of that process?
Very easy. It's right here. You cannot be hunched over. If you do, the muscles here need to expand quickly and fully, and that's what draws the lungs down and opens and sucks the air in. And if you just take your hands and go like this, as if you were surprised, surprised look on the face, and with the hands, it's like I'm going to pull, and watch what I do right here. And when you do that, right here, the tendency is to breathe from here.
Is there a wide variety of instructional methods necessary when you're dealing with such a wide variety of singing experience?
I don't think so. People who are really experienced sometimes need a refresher. There are lots of different ways to teach this. But one of the things, again, is making sure the body is elevated but still very relaxed, but energetic and ready to go. And once that all happens, that opens this area up. So we always talk about posture, and I have a lovely elderly lady who sings with the Platteville Chorale, and she's probably the shortest person in the choir, but she's always the tallest person. She always is very mindful of that she wants to be tall, and so I always use her as an example. We also tell them never be afraid to make a mistake, because if you're afraid to make a mistake, you're going to make a mistake, period. You will. And so, you know, open up, have that mouth wide open, sing, don't be afraid of it. And if you sing small, I can't help you. If you sing open and big, I can always go, shh, that's plenty, or that's too much. The actual music that we are singing, when you start talking Americana, you're talking spirituals, you're talking folk music, you're talking some original music, but a lot of times it's based on American poetry by American composers, that kind of thing. I tend to want to make it like a meal. And this is one of the things that my father used to talk about, that he always wanted to have a meal. He would serve the salad maybe, and then the meat and potato is the really more difficult stuff to sing and maybe to hear as an audience, and then to finish up with the dessert. I always try and do a little of that, meaning I'd like to stretch our singers, and we have some really good singers that need that to be stretched and challenged a bit. And then to come back with some things that seem like a dessert. We sang My Funny Valentine and Hello Young Lovers, both in vocal jazz styles this year, and those were perfect examples of dessert. I sang and played all through school. When I say played, I played a musical instrument in middle school and high school, French horn, and took piano lessons early on. But I went to the University of Wisconsin, Platteville, and one of my primary instructors was my father, William Dennis. Went out to teach. Went to Flint, Michigan, and taught junior high school there and high school. And along the way, I got an advanced degree from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And so that's pretty much it right there. It's a nice connection with my father.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He was a theory teacher. He was the one who didn't teach me how to play piano, but he taught me how to use the piano and compose and arrange. And so often music is not ready to be used by a choir or a music group that you have to tweak it, you have to adjust it a little bit too. music is wonderful and should be in schools from kindergarten all the way through high school. And for the most part, Wisconsin schools have done that, and Michigan schools did not. Most states do not. And so bravo, Wisconsin. It makes kids open up. I fear for future education, kids are in front of computer screens, that they don't interact with people. And interacting with people is so important for self-confidence. And music does it. I mean, that's not the only reason why a person ought to study music, because, again, it's a second language. It makes people understand so much more of the other courses that are there. And music has been, it's a cultural thing, but everybody has it. And all traditions and societies have it. And those are the outgoing people. A couple days ago, I went to one of the graduations at UW-Platteville. And it featured engineers, math and chemistry and science majors. And they picked out a graduate and a recent graduate from 12 years before. Oh, guess what? I had both of those people in choir at the university down there. And the gal who was just graduating, was also in theater. And how did she speak? Well, she spoke, and the other person who had graduated a few years back spoke much better than the adults who were speaking, of course. I mean, the people who were in administration or the math and science or the engineers, well, they too were engineers, but, you know, they had this music background where they could get up and face people and not be afraid.
And not speak from their shoulders.
And not speak from the shoulders. They could speak from here and knew all the physical things and not be afraid.
What is the deal with the little hand gestures?
Oh, the gestures.
Can you sort of explain to me what those hand gestures mean?
A lot of the gesturing that I do, Gary, is to build confidence in singers. Particularly with the singers that I'm working with right now, I want as much facial communication from singers. Partially it's selfish, that I know that they will sing better if they're looking at me, and we're all together beat-wise. If people's heads are down looking at the printed music, they're relying completely on ears to know when to come in, and you can't do that. Or to know how to stay with somebody. It just doesn't work very well. I think one of the successes we've had, one of the things is the confidence factor of, all right, let's share the words all together. And so if I give a downbeat, or that is the initial beat, I'll indicate a breath, and if that first word needs to be there, everybody needs to be looking at me and not down at their music. But the idea is, when you conduct, you're conducting a beat pattern. That is, if I'm conducting something that has 4 beats, and that feels 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's always stress in the first, so somehow I would suggest a breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So people can always follow, whether they're following music, or whether they're following, printed music, or whether they're just following me and something that they have memorized, or somebody else. That pattern can change with that, but you always are trying to feel a pulse or a beat. And the primary reason a person conducts is to start, to end, and to keep that pulse going. In the meantime, the other hand can be used for nuance, can be used for stretching, can be used for slowing down. My own thoughts is the audience should not see a lot of this. The audience is looking at my back. They should see the faces of the choir up there. And so when I'm doing this, I'm looking at the people like this. Hopefully I know my music well enough, but I'm doing those kinds of things with them. I would rather that my hands didn't stretch out and somehow be a distraction to people who are behind, and maybe block their faces too. An audience loves to see faces. They don't want to see tops of heads. And as singers, we have an advantage. We have the medium of our language, or other languages, that we can communicate. Even if you're singing a foreign language, still delivering that with a facial expression is so important. The extreme for singers is the barbershop groups, where a lot of times there's no beat pattern in there, but they're conducting expression completely with hands. So if they're singing Shine On Harvest Moon, you're going to go, shine on harvest moon, up in the sky. Something on that order, where I might conduct it. Shine on harvest moon, up in, where I'm still keeping that beat pattern there, whereas an instrumentalist would go, shine on harvest moon. Very, very crisp and precise about that, and probably would have a baton with that. When you direct a large group, a lot of times people will use a baton just so that they can see. My dad had a baton that they would do all-star bands, and that thing was at least that long. And you didn't want to sit in the front row.
You reach over and tap people on the
No,
shoulder.
you could. You could.
Well, it also seems that those hand motions could be used to sustain, indicate, I want you to sustain that note, or
absolutely.
You people need to be louder, or take it down a notch.
Well, and
sorts of reminders.
The gestures you just used are exactly what goes on. You have a future.
I do.
Be a music director, if I do this. I'm wanting smoothness, but I'm wanting to maybe sustain with this. And choral directors, again, are liable to do this more than an instrumental director would, whereas they'll keep a beat pattern going and we just will continue this.
I'm curious if you've had any sort of big trip-ups during a show where somebody comes in at the wrong moment. Has there ever been any big stumbles that you're willing to share?
Well, that's really interesting because, for some people, what's a big stumble? It's in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Professionals, whether they are serious classical performers or whether they are pop stars, if they're honest with you, they'll tell you they make mistakes all the time. They just know how to cover those mistakes. And that's one of the things that we teach always. If you're going to make an entrance, you make it big. So that, if it's wrong, it's wrong. But if you make it confidently, who's to know? My sincere belief for a long, long time is that everyone can sing unless they are physically impaired somehow. The people who have talked about that are people who at some point are shy, or in the case of males, somehow it would upset their masculinity. They're afraid of sounding funny. All people can sing, just some sing better than others.
Tennessee-born author Alex Bledsoe had a quirky connection to Wisconsin even before he moved to Mount Horeb. On the next episode of Talk of the Trollway, we'll find out how that happened and see if the troll capital of the world has a role to play in any of his future books. I'm your host, Gary Schutz.
Beautiful dreamer, queen of my song, this fall I woo thee with soft melody. Gone are the cares of life's busy throng. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me.
Talk of the Trollway is a production of Mount Horeb, Wisconsin's village cable station, Trollway TV. Funding for Talk of the Trollway is provided by Miller & Sons Supermarket. Talk of the Trollway is on Facebook, where your comments and story ideas are welcome.